Hello and welcome to this video contemplation of day signature 39. We're on 39.
Mm-hmm.
Frequency 39 corresponds to the Queen of Wands, and the Queen of Wands represents the noble role of intimacy. This day signature is represented by the angels of intelligence and liberation. The 17th angel of intelligence and the 39th angel of liberation. Would you like to share the pathways and embodiments for these angels?
Yeah, sure. So the 17th angel of intelligence walks the pathway of knowing to become the embodiment of faith. And then the 39th angel of liberation walks the pathway of stimulation to become the embodiment of autonomy. And I really actually like to point out that the particular pathways are really good words or kind of a good go-to if you're having trouble sort of connecting to these big ideas like faith or autonomy. The pathways really give you this like sort of grounded essence of what we're working with. So stimulation and knowing would be the pathways.
Yeah, well, what they invite, I think, is a practical direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and often that is fairly self-explanatory.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, for those of you who have been following along, the pathway of knowing is perfectly connected to everything we've talked about every day leading up until this point. Mm-hmm. Whereas the pathway of stimulation may be deserving of a little more explanation. Mm-hmm. And most of the pathways are self-explanatory. This one is particularly fun for us because the word surprised us and it's only continued to blossom and to mean more. But the pathway is always the practical outlet of these energies. Yeah, good job. I mean, this is something we probably should have said a long time ago, but I'm really happy you remembered to say that today.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I kind of see an invitation to sprinkle in some little explanation, we'll try to do that.
Great, especially when it's so practical. That's
right.
Awesome. These conversations are virtual conversations, but the intent of the conversations is to deliver the opportunity to kind of take what we explore into real life. And that's just perfect, babe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What we have here is a lot of newness. Today in particular, we're meeting a lot of things we have not yet discussed. And so we thought it might be neat at the outset to track back and introduce what has happened between yesterday and today. What is all of this newness? Why is it significant? So to begin with, we should maybe start with the set of virtues that is wands and how the Liberated Tarot itself moves.
Yeah, it's structured in a particular way.
Yeah.
So what we're actually doing every day is moving through the Liberated Tarot sequence in chronological order. So we start with the 22 primes. And that's numbers 1 through 22. And then we move into the nobles and the virtues, which those are sort of categorized by the 4 suits, or what we call, I guess we would call them just the categories.
The virtues.
But, so the
virtues.
There
are 4 virtues.
So we have swords are first, then wands, then hearts, and then diamonds. So we're moving through... we just moved through the swords from beginning to end, and each category starts with the nobles and then moves into the virtues. So being in a new category today, we're starting with the first noble, which is actually the queen.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Wow. It's so interesting when this Liberated Tarot, its sequence and its members, when all of this was revealed to us, we knew we were onto something, but we had no clue how brilliant that something was. And it is fair to say that we were completely hands-off in terms of how it was structured. We knew that we were sensing toward the proper structure, and we knew we had found it once we did. But it was very much as if we had all of these puzzle pieces in a jumble on a table, and we just shifted and adjusted until there was an image. So in this regard, I don't think we can take much credit for the genius inherent to the structure, but we're learning what that genius is and how important that structure, that sequence really is. One of the things that really surprised us is that the nobles, these archetypal roles that we find in the tarot, they prioritized the feminine first.
Mm-hmm.
It was the queen, then the king. It was the princess, then the prince. Something about this felt equal parts obvious and surprising.
Right.
And we have witnessed that shift from more kind of traditional or mainstream sequential structures. We've recognized that to be brilliant in more ways than we could possibly recount in this conversation. For today's purposes, understand that it's significant that we begin with the queen, that we begin first with this receptive, yin-like, open energy of the feminine archetype.
Mm-hmm.
The noble role itself, in this case, it's the noble role of intimacy. This noble role is replacing what we've been working through in the past several days as virtues. We were working with the sword virtues. We will eventually be working with the wand virtues, but first we're going to meet all of these noble roles. And you can kind of get a sense for what the difference between an actual role that you stand up into and embody and claim, how that's different from a set of virtues which are inherent to your character, these qualities that you can embody and activate and employ. It's subtle, but there's a difference here. We're really invited to become something. Not just to enact something, but to become something when we meet the nobles. And here is our first opportunity to meet a noble. One of the other categories that we're going to discover, which we have never introduced, but we can mention now, is the angels. Every one of the 4 sets of virtues, swords, wands, hearts, and diamonds, every one of them is represented by an angel. The angel is going to describe the essence of that suit or set of virtues. In this case, it's really helpful to know that at the outset. We're meeting wands for the first time. Mm-hmm. So what is the essence of this set of virtues that we're referring to as wands? The essence is power. And amazingly enough, the keynote that we have personally applied to or discovered for the queen itself is also power. Mm-hmm. So anytime you meet a queen, whether it's the queen of swords, wands, hearts, or diamonds, that queen is bringing the essence of this idea of power. Well, so is the set of virtues that we call wands. So power today is like uniquely amplified in whatever's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Right?
How would you describe power? I think it's really
wow.
It's really again, the intelligence of how this is structured is just, once you understand it, it makes so much sense. And I think when we understand what power is, it'll really help, because we went from
you're so smart, babe.
The swords. We went from the swords where we're in the mental realm and we're actually learning how to utilize, the power of our minds properly through focus and orientation. Once we kind of graduate, which we did yesterday, and we learn how to do that in a way that unlocks power, I think is what kind of happens there.
Yeah.
So, but what is power? How does that, work in this context? What does it mean? What do we think it means? I think we could talk about that a little bit.
So smart. Well, it's interesting because it's one of these words in English where a single word can have many different applications. And already in what you just shared, we're seeing that. Mm-hmm. We've thrown the word around a lot, but what we intend by it probably does deserve definition, because in every context, we mean something different, actually. Mm-hmm. So up until this point, we've talked about the single greatest human power, which is the capacity to focus your mind, to use the mind in a particular way. That's your mental power.
Right, and to be able to choose.
Yeah, to choose, right? The power to choose, right? Mm-hmm. So this is one application of power. This differs from what we meet in the type of power that we're describing in the queen, for example. The queen, as a representative of this theme of power, is actually representative of the underlying power that is life. One of the angels speaks to this, and it talks about how power and love are the same. Love equals power. Power is love. What this means is that supporting everything is the infinite something. Mm-hmm. That's power. It is the creative power, the original source of creative power. And power is the very thing that responds to our application of mental power. So there's this capital P power. Mm-hmm. like surging for expression through our mental application of the mind, of that power. You see? Same word, different story. And yet another story plays out when we meet the wands and its essence of power. This power is now elevated from the mental power. Elevated isn't the right word, more like embodied or integrated. Mm-hmm. This power is power to move physically. It's physical, it's verbal, it's taking the action of mind and putting it into life as some other form of viable action, whether that's physical or verbal, but it's making real the thing that was once mental.
Mm-hmm. That's why our keynotes for wands
great.
Vigor and expression.
Yeah, so let's do this briefly. Let's kind of run through the sequence from swords to wands to hearts to diamonds because it perfectly connects. Mm-hmm. So in the swords, the keynotes that we find and have been working with are focus and orientation. This means that we have the ability to focus our mental power, and it means that we have the ability to choose which direction we will focus that in. Yeah. Focus and orientation. That's the power to think and the power to choose, right?
Yeah.
Wands are represented by the keynotes vigor and expression. So there's power, there's life, there's vitality, and it's wanting to move too. Mm-hmm. Now, rather than aiming our thoughts, we're aiming our decisions, we're aiming our behavior, we're aiming our words, so to speak. Mm-hmm. When we graduate, I really like that word. When we graduate from the wands to the hearts, all of this very practical activity begins to kind of, it integrates. It's like our hearts open and become porous, and the life that we've been producing through those actions takes root. It's like the heart can be imagined as this really fertile, freshly tilled soil that all of these confident decisions we've made between the swords and the wands are planted in and take root and sprout. And the heart, of course, is so vital, but in a completely different way. It's internalized again. It starts internal with the mind, it's expressed externally with the wands, and it becomes internal again to unify heart and mind. Right? And now you've got something truly alive. Mm-hmm. No longer an idea, no longer an attempt to create something through action, but a true manifestation of both of those things in the center of your being, which is the very most explosive place for all of this to play out. The keynotes, of course, for hearts then are feeling and expansion. Because it's not just about expression, it's about what that expression produces, and in the heart is where we find the product of this. Yeah. We begin to find the product because it all arrives at the diamonds. The diamonds, as a set of virtues, are represented by the keynotes of fulfillment and permission. And now this is where what was once a seed, which then became a sprout, which then blossomed and sprouted, leaves and flowers. Now it's going to bear fruit. Now there's actually something you can pull off the tree and take a bite out of. In the diamonds, we meet the world that emerges as a result of all of these other steps. Mm-hmm. Right?
If you're familiar with the 4 elements, same sort of thing will follow suit. So you have the swords, which are air, the wands, which are fire, hearts, which are water, and diamonds, which are earth.
Yeah. And so you can see that movement there as well. When you arrive at the earth, all of these ideas that you've been exploring mentally, enacting physically, and choosing to make real in this way, and taking into yourself on a very personal, wholehearted level, they become complete in the diamonds. They take root, and you're now living in and walking on the earth, the territory of all those previous decisions. And that's how you literally produce a world. This is how we become kings and queens of our own castles, so to speak. It's through this exact same sequence. So all of this is kind of like a neat introduction to the Liberated Tarot and how it moves. None of this, we didn't know any of this at the start, frankly. When we were shown the Liberated Tarot, we had no idea that the sequence was so brilliant that it kind of moved in its own way. This is something we've been discovering along the way.
Really, truly. I mean, this is the first time we've ever moved through the sequence ourselves. So we're doing it right along with all of you watching. We obviously had the sense that it is supposed to be moved through as a sequence. So that's why we began doing it. And we just assumed everybody's going to want to know about this. If you're interested in understanding and learning the Liberated Tarot and everything that we're building, why not share, what we're learning as we're learning it? So.
Well, and we firmly believe that we have been gifted with the revelation of something which is meant to elevate and ultimately replace prior versions of the tarot. The tarot has always been meant to expand us, and in those cases where it has limited or kind of squeezed us into these corners of worry or even fear, that absolutely deserves to be purged, cleansed, and replaced with something empowered. That's what the Liberated Tarot does. So we share all of this because we recognize that this is not just some inventive toy. It's not some random new system. We weren't bored and came up with this because there was nothing else to do or because we just love the tarot that much. We were minding our own business, and then life zapped us with its little lightning bolt of insight and said, hey, you guys, drop what you're doing. This is what you will be doing for the rest of your lives. This and the angels, go. So we're doing that and sharing it with you. Now, we've talked about the different categories. Laura mentioned the primes, the nobles, the angels, and the virtues. We've now met the virtues, and we're meeting our first noble. In time, we will meet the primes. In time, we will meet the angels. In fact, we'll meet the angel of wands fairly soon. We've talked about how the swords transition into the wands, which then graduate into the hearts, which then graduate into the diamonds. I think at this point we can begin to share a bit more about what we're seeing in the day based on everything that we're kind of pulling into the wands, pulling into the queen, recognizing in these areas. We get a really clear sense for why it is that the Queen of Wands represents the noble role of intimacy.
Right.
The reason for this, of course, is that the whole mental sequence that we traversed in the swords is now coming to life.
Yeah, so the frequency of 39 today is a match to the phrase able to fly, which we mentioned yesterday. You realize that you are in this intimate relationship with life, with the universe, and this moment of understanding that you have wings and you can fly. That's sort of what this position is all about.
It's one step past that. Right. Understanding is one thing, flying is another. This position is about flapping the wings.
Totally.
And flying. And how surprising is that? Again, we talked a bit about this yesterday, but can you truly imagine what it's like for the butterfly to emerge from its cocoon, or that bird in the glass cage to realize that it can simply fly up and out? That is liberation itself. This is an image of liberation. Of course, we meet the angel of liberation here.
Definitely.
It's so perfect. But the reason that I like, if you have something more to say, go for it.
I was just going to say, and at the same time, because we have two angels here, the angel of intelligence, that ability is because you're connected to this overarching intelligence that's organizing everything. That organizing factor is what allows you to be able to take that leap. The knowing, the faith that goes along with that. Yeah,
it's like, I guess it doesn't allow you. You're the only one ever allowing or permitting yourself. But what it does is it gives you the confidence.
Right.
If there is, in fact, an orchestrating element in life, if everything that happens on purpose, and if that organizing factor, if that intelligence is goodness itself, if it's the promise of goodness, the promise of life, the promise of growth, the promise of love and expansion, if that's the underlying intelligence, all of a sudden you realize, of course I want to fly. What danger is there? What risk? And you realize there is no risk. There is only invitation. And the invitation is to enjoy the life that you've been given. The invitation is to marvel at the miracle. And so, of course, you fly and then you sing. This is what birds do. We had no business in the cage. So I think that's actually a really important point, and I'm glad you reminded me, because I do believe that the angel of intelligence, walking the pathway of knowing to become the embodiment of faith, is the perfect bridge to take us from the mental knowing that we cultivated in the swords up into or down into, if you think of putting all of these ideas in your head down into your feet, in either case, it bridges the gap from mind to body or action, right? And so intimacy here is about closeness. Intimacy is about directness. Intimacy is about meeting life as an activity. Actually, this is really fun, but we shared one of our daily wallpapers today.
Yeah.
The phrase, it's very simple, but it's so perfect for this first step into the ones. The phrase is simply, you are a verb. You are not a noun. I mean, we spent all of the swords working with the noun, working with the identity. Who am I? Building up this sense of self that permits, that holds the possibility of confident self-expression and constructive self-expression, because all of this power that is life is surging for expression through us, and it is giving to us whatever we choose. Yeah. Good, bad, or indifferent. So we're choosing good, and we're choosing to allow those great big visions to move into life. Well, here we have intimacy. What this means is that we're meant to see it. We're meant to feel it. We're meant to touch it and taste it and live it. It's supposed to be sensual. It's literally the difference between intimacy and fantasy. If we never flap the wings, then it doesn't matter if you sit there at the bottom of the cage saying, I am a bird, I am a bird. It doesn't matter how long you sit in meditation in the middle of nowhere in some tiny little cave, repeating the mantra, I am a bird. Useless. Yeah. You can be in the middle of New York City. You don't need to be in a cave. You can be in the middle of New York City, and if you say, I am a bird, and then flap your wings, you're actually doing the thing that the mantra will never permit. This is about so much more than the idea. It's about taking the idea into life, making practical the very thing that oftentimes feels so impractical. We talked about too good to be true yesterday. This is about realizing that these ideas are so good they must be true. And if that is true, then you must live them in order for your life to elevate to that new baseline. Yes,
it's a constant opening so that you're permitting the power to flow.
Yes, and you're doing something with it. It's so, so important. I think it's really easy in this world of kind of virtual reality. We're engaged virtually most of the time. It's real easy to talk about things. It's real easy to swap opinions. It's real easy to argue. It's real easy to debate, to convince others of your ideas. Forget about all that. Convince yourself, and convince yourself so totally that you have to move on the benefit inherent to that idea. That's what the Queen of Wands is about, and that's what she is inviting. That's what intimacy is. Come close enough to your life that you actually live it. Come close enough to your life that you can actually feel it. I really enjoy this energy. It was a surprise to us to find this word here, but now, of course, as we've contemplated what's happening, it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
So the 17th angel is our bridge. We know absolutely that life is good. Therefore, we can move with confidence. Therefore, we can fly without fear of falling. Right? It's worth noting here as well that the 17th angel is one of the conversations that we have had, which means that this day's signature is inviting each of you to go read that session. Yeah. More than read, study. Realize
it's one of my favorites.
It is. It remains one of our favorites.
So rich.
Realize
very good.
that every one of those rich, beautiful words is spoken to you for you today. We may have had that session, however long ago, but the fact that this angel is alive here, is activated or highlighted or present in this day's signature. Obviously, they're all with us all the time, but we recognize this to be an invitation to interact with or engage with this particular angel. Go read the session. If you are on our website and you've navigated to the Crystalline Codex and you've scrolled down to this particular member of the tarot and you've clicked on the card, you'll find that icon at the top of the page that says, intelligence. It's representative of the angel of intelligence. If you click that, it's going to take you right to the session. Or, of course, you can just click on sessions at the top of our website and navigate there yourself. But in either case, we invite you to read that session. We will be. It's extremely important, because you will see how it lays the groundwork that supports the understanding that life is good. It gives you what you need to know in order to move with confidence, in order to move.
Right.
Just that.
Mm-hmm.
That alone is the graduation that happened between swords and wands. And we are now in the energy of wands. We are now in the energy, in the movement, in the activity. So we get to do that. What all of this leads us to at this point, I believe, and forgive me if I've missed anything, you fill in the blanks as usual, but angel of liberation.
Yeah.
The 39th angel of liberation. We've flapped our wings. We're no longer in that glass cage. We're now flying around for the first time in this great big world that we've only ever kind of looked out on and wished for. Everything is new.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
It's a lot of stimulation.
Oh my.
Hence the pathway.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of it that way. Yeah. When you become intimately involved with your life, it's highly stimulating, even overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I sometimes think of living out an entire life in a pitch black setting. And it's a room. It's a room like any other room. So it's got furniture and it's got items, and you're used to navigating this room in complete darkness. You're totally blind. You're tripping over the things in the room kind of all the time. And that's just, hey, that's part of life. And then at some point along the way, someone flicks on a light. At first, that light is blinding. At first, you went from being blind to being painfully blind. It's like, ow, that hurts. And you're squeezing your eyes shut against the very thing that allows you to actually navigate this room deftly. To see, hey, wow, all along that thing was a chair. I could have been sitting comfortably instead of tripping over this for the last, few decades. That's kind of what this is like. You're now flying, but you're developing new muscles as you're flying, and you're seeing things that you hadn't seen from your original position in that cage. Everything's different. Everything's new. It's exciting and maybe also a little terrifying.
And also terrifying for those watching you.
Yeah.
But,
well,
I mean, that's part of what this angel sort of is expressing. I mean, there's a lot suddenly happening that wasn't happening before.
Correct.
So it can be overwhelming or, for yourself and maybe those around you. But
so this is really what we saw, I would say, even primarily in this pathway. It's odd because most of the pathways are pertaining to you. And of course, you can see how this movement would be stimulating for you too. But ultimately, stimulation is a signature that reaches out and touches others. Stimulation is the promise that when you live the life that you were meant to live, without holding yourself back from it, when you start flying, it's going to stimulate something in others. Mm-hmm. And that something may be interpreted as good. It may be interpreted as bad. There will be others who watch you flying and say, I want to try. Mm-hmm. And you stimulate that awareness in them. They didn't even know they were a bird. Now they're starting to catch on. And before long, they're flying with you. That's huge. You realize when you move from swords into wands, where before you may have been at best a teacher, now you become a model. Something else is happening. You're not talking about what's possible. You're showing what's possible. That has such a profound benefit, not only for you, but for everyone involved. Even those people who look at you flying and say, oh, no, that's dangerous. You could fall, you get eaten by a larger bird, all of these different potential worries. And those people may even attempt to convince you that you're doing the wrong thing, or attempt to convince you that your behavior is traumatizing them, or attempt to convince you that it's unsafe up there in the great big blue beautiful sky. Your responsibility is to do what you're doing, to have your intimate relationship, your private personal relationship with life, period. Regardless of who it touches, for the better, regardless of who it appears to touch, for the worse. Because what do we know about life? What do we know about this intelligence? We know that it is good. We know that there is no bad impact. It may be interpreted as uncomfortable. It may be verbalized as inappropriate. But what we know is that everything happens for a reason, and everything happens for our benefit. And anything that happens for you or for me or for Laura reaches out and touches every other life in a way that benefits that life, whether they're aware of it or not. So stimulation, ultimately, is a guarantee that when you show up to your own invitation to liberation, and you fly. When you liberate yourself, your example will touch others. It will stimulate something primal in others. And in every case, no matter what, no matter the interpretation, in every case, it will stimulate something good, something necessary. What will it stimulate? It will stimulate more liberation. Because even the people who look at you and say that's unsafe or that's the wrong thing to do, something in them is responding to the model that you're showing, and they may not understand what it is, but I promise you it's cracking open some crust of themselves that needed to be cracked open for the light to get through. It may be uncomfortable. They might be squeezing their eyes shut saying, I don't like it. But one way or another, the life you choose to live is going to shine a light on others that allows them to start navigating their life in a new way. Hey, that's a chair. I'm going to sit for a moment rather than trip over it and crash my head into the wall again. You know?
Yeah, it's as simple as realizing that you're permitting your light to shine. You're shining your light. That's what you're doing.
You know what you just did, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So tell them.
So the 17th angel, these angels that begin at 1 and go up to the number 22, they're the same angels that correlate to the 22 primes. And so the 17th prime is the star, and that is the prime instinct to shine. Yeah. So
we talked a little bit about the sequence yesterday that's been unfolding over the past few days. In the 14th angel, we met the prime instinct to embody. And then in the 15th angel, we met the prime instinct to expand. Remember, this is when we realized we were a bird, and then we realized that the cage was too small. And then yesterday, we met the prime instinct in the 16th angel.
Redemption.
Yeah. The card is redemption. The 16th angel is renewal. But the prime instinct in this position was to rise. To embody, to expand, to rise. And now that we have risen, what else rises?
Stars.
A sun.
Yeah.
Right? The sun is a star.
Yes.
So here we find the prime instinct to shine. Yesterday we rose. We got out of the cage. Today we shine. When we shine, we stimulate awareness. That's what happens. Again, it will be interpreted in any number of ways, more ways than you can count. Not one of those ways are you responsible for. You have zero responsibility for what your authentic action stimulates in others. What you can know is that there is an organizing intelligence in life that will absolutely, without fail, allow for that stimulation to ignite something meaningful and something beneficial in everyone. Everyone you know, everyone you don't know. That's how this web of life, which is far too complex for any of us to begin to compute, works. This conversation that we are having now, it doesn't just reach out and touch you, the viewer. It reaches out and touches everyone who isn't viewing it. It reaches out and touches everyone across all of time, forward and backwards. We don't understand how that works. Our brains can't wrap themselves around the complexity of this, but we do know that this is how it works. That every time we choose to meet life on purpose and rise up into that authentic role of self and choose to express from that place, every time this happens, life grows. It is expanded in some way, because when a Timothy shows up and says this today, we realize he's never said that before. And so the story of life is expanded a little bit by what I've chosen to do. Same for Laura, same for you. Every one of us is moment by moment opening that membrane of life to include more. This is, we're bordering on the angel of originality when we speak here, because it's like every single action is perfect, because every single act is the first time that particular act has ever been played out. No matter what it is. A single breath, brilliant insight, whatever the case may be. We are actors on a stage, so to speak, and the only way that we get to really kind of benefit from this and feel the benefit is when we live it out in real life on purpose. And that's what the swords were preparing us for, and that's what this day has initiated us to. Not so shabby.
No.
And what do we embody when this is permitted? Autonomy. Liberation and autonomy may seem redundant, but I don't believe them to be redundant at all. Liberation is like a permission slip. Liberation is a context, but autonomy is an application of self. Autonomy is what happens in any case where you have a binary system that presents the opportunity for choice. In any case where you can go left or right, up or down, forward or backward, in any case where you can say yes or no, you have a context that supports the capacity for choice. The moment that there is an opportunity to choose, you are autonomous. Every one of us as a conscious being in life is autonomous by virtue of our existence in this context. That's what the swords were all about, choosing. We have a very simple choice to make. In the forgotten sense, we're choosing between red and green. We're choosing between that which uplifts and that which depresses, between that which is constructive and that which is not. We've spoken over the past few days about the sword virtues and really what they helped us to see, which is that we're constantly met with a choice between two paths. One is the path of worry and the other is the path of wonder. And we're choosing to open toward the path of wonder. Same thing. These binary choices afford us the capacity to choose. It is that very thing that makes us creators in this world.
Yep.
You can stay in the cage or not. You can think you are a worm, or you can think you are a bird, or you can think you are a beautiful bird, or you can think you are a phoenix, you can think you are a dragon. You get to choose. There aren't just two options. You have infinite options at your disposal. Infinite possibilities exist. This is what the angels have told us. This is what we've seen. How large can you go? How big can you imagine? How high can you take that idea? Do that and take it even further. Do it over and over and over again. Keep blasting out of these glass cages. Keep flying up into that blue sky. Keep growing. That's what life says. That's what this whole sequence from swords to wands to hearts to diamonds is playing out as a cycle over and over again, which is why these day signatures play out 1 through 86 over and over again across all of time. Because we are constantly moving through this spiraling, expanding, octave up movement of expansion and growth. We are constantly seeing more. We are constantly becoming better. And we're constantly being invited to participate in the pattern of growth that life is. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, really special what we get to experience today. I haven't even mentioned, speaking of this spiral, this expanding spiral, this vortex, but today's a vortex day for me.
Yeah.
So the frequency of 39 is connected to my inner urge in the crystal self experience or in the chronicle. Anyone who might want to learn about their inner urge can do so in either of those experiences. We have the digital package that we deliver as a booklet that we refer to as the Crystal Self Chronicle. And then we have the 12-week journey that we go on. We call it the Crystal Self Odyssey. In either of those cases, you would learn about your inner urge. My inner urge is the 39. It's something I've worked with for years, but never in this way. Never with this awareness. This is new. I get to rediscover that part of myself. I get to allow that particular part of myself to express in new ways.
I think this is why you're so on fire today.
I'm on fire today? That's a wands. That's cool. That's a wands element. Thank you. Well, it feels different from yesterday. We were on fire yesterday and it felt like explosion. This feels excited but calm. It feels noble. It feels like, like the queen would kind of sit and repose, but every word would have this gravity. And that's kind of what this feels like. And so as it's sinking in that it's as personal as it is, it's like, yes, I get to learn about myself in a new way today. And by the end of this day, I will have done what I've just described. I will have expanded my own sense of myself in a way that allows more light in. And then, inevitably and automatically allows more light out. Wow.
Amazing.
Beautiful. Exciting. It all leads up to tomorrow. Today we talk about the 39th angel of liberation on the pathway of stimulation to become the embodiment of autonomy. We talk about how autonomy is a system that presents the opportunity to choose, and autonomy is a promise that we live in that system, that we get to choose, and that's the very thing that makes us free, that makes us creative, that invites us to participate in life. Well, tomorrow we're going to meet the frequency of 40, and we're going to meet the King of Wands. And
it's kind of a special day.
Yep.
I mean, these conversations are timeless, but tomorrow's full moon, so we get to talk about it in that context, which will be fun.
Well, I hadn't even thought of that. I was thinking about how tomorrow's a vortex day for you, and I was thinking about how the angel, the 40th angel tomorrow, is the angel of decision. And that's exactly what we are enacting today. We've made a lot of mental decisions. Today we choose to come close to those decisions, to begin to consider, man, what would it be like to take that step, to make that move, to speak those words, to make it real in some meaningful way, even if it feels risky, even if other people around us may not necessarily celebrate or applaud it. Utterly irrelevant. We are called in this signature to act in the authentic way. What were you saying earlier about small steps? I think that baby steps. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that whatever you need in the moment, whether it's taking baby steps or taking, these big leaps of faith or big actions, you have the ability to do either. You're supported to do either, whatever is necessary in the moment. So I think about for my own life, I've just been really supported to take the baby steps, and that's what I need to do. Whatever feels right for you, you'll be able to do the same. It's not like you're being pushed off this cliff and you got to make this big move right now. It's entirely up to you how quickly or how slowly you want to move.
Yeah, I think you touched on what you had mentioned earlier, but it's worth just kind of expanding a little bit, because I think Laura's concern is that we're very excited about what we're talking about. We've lived all of this and we've recognized its benefit. And so we're just like, let's go, what that may come across as is an encouragement to kind of explode out of your comfort zones all at once, or to take drastic action, even if it's totally uncomfortable and not at all the right time for you. Yeah. And that's not at all what we're saying. What we're saying is that the appropriate action will become so inevitable that you have to move. Life is really good about this. The moment you open to that intelligence, the moment you open yourself to truly knowing that there is no risk, that everything that happens for you, that there is only good, the more you let this sink in, the easier you breathe, the more you expand until there's no question of staying in the cage. You could not possibly. Right. And so you leave the cage. That moment of leaving the cage, that cage could be anything. It could be a career that doesn't have your whole heart, and it feels like a really big thing to consider leaving your job and doing something different, until you wake up one morning and you're like, I'm done. There is no life here. I'm going this direction now. And everyone says, that's crazy. And you're going, not really, because it's been 3 decades I've been miring in this nonsense, and I'm just going to do this now because I don't want to waste any more time. I love this. Yeah. When it happens, it happens. Whether or not it happens gradually through baby steps or apparently immediately through dynamic movement is irrelevant. You'll know what needs to happen when it's time for that thing to happen. And that's really hard to trust. Yeah. A few days ago, we talked about the 15th angel and its pathway of rhythm. That was all about timing. We didn't even touch on that, but this is something we've already kind of like digested, whether we knew it or not, in, a couple of days ago in its signature, this ability to kind of sense into proper timing and to trust that that divine timing, so to speak, emerges naturally. And it emerges naturally through an awareness of your authentic self-expression, your authentic timing, your authentic desire. Right. When it comes time to move, you will. And it doesn't matter how that looks. It may be true that for you, it has historically been baby steps, but frankly, I've watched you make quantum leaps. It's never just one thing. For me, it's often been quantum leaps. And I've also taken a lot of baby steps. It's kind of all of the above. Yeah,
it's even little things throughout your day. I mean, it could be as simple as following your highest excitement within a day, and you don't have to be thinking in these long stretches of time you can focus on just what's happening now.
Yeah.
And permit yourself to go for a walk if that's what excites you in that moment. Like it can be really simple as well.
In fact, that's the only way it works. What Laura has just described is the only way it works. It's not that you don't have to think in terms of long stretches of time. It's that it's irresponsible to. When you're trying to project the future, that's an ineffective mental application, because we don't get to tell the future. We get to choose now and now and now. And if we do this, as we do this, the future writes itself, and that intelligence is given the space it needs to weave into and produce the kind of outcomes we never could have imagined, because we're not over here trying to arbitrarily draft that trajectory and enforce what we think is best. You meet this moment as completely and as authentically as you possibly can. That's an intimate movement. It involves the mind, and it involves a willingness to act. You meet this moment totally. You go for that walk instead of whatever you thought you were supposed to do. Or you do the thing you committed to yourself that you would do, even though it's a little outside of your comfort zone. You take these steps over and over again because you know them to be the proper step for right now, and then you watch moment by moment, day by day, week by week, month by month, how the paradise you've envisioned is literally coming to life beneath every footfall. And then one day you wake up and you're like, dang, I am literally in paradise. In a previous life, I was here. Now I'm here. And I'm excited about all of this more. You're constantly growing. That's how this works. It's hard to trust when you think about it too hard. It's like, well, yeah, but any number of things could go wrong. The guarantee, and what we're here to show you and to tell you and to show you, I did that on purpose, is that many, many things are going to go right. So many things could go wrong. Everything is going to go right. I promise. Provided you are willing to meet that moment as completely and as authentically as you possibly can. That's it. That's what we're called to do. So that's what this day is about. We bring that vigor into the ideas that we've had. We come close enough to life that we actually begin to do something with them. And then we just pay attention to what unfolds, what is inspired as a result. Every step stimulates the next. And every step you take reaches out beyond you to have an impact on every other life. The stimulation is built in both directions. Your responsibility is to move, and to move authentically, and to trust in that intelligence as you do. Mm-hmm. I hope all of this makes sense as kind of a narrative. There's a lot of pieces playing out here.
Oh yeah, but
it should feel real practical.
Yeah, you weaved that beautifully from where I'm sitting. So I think it'll be very clear.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, in closing, I think the only other thing I'd like to share that we saw earlier was that one of the phrases that perfectly matches this frequency of 39 is the phrase, I am a seer. Mm-hmm. Those of you who know me know how excited I am about the idea of a seer and seer training and all of these things. The reason this is kind of mind-blowing today is because earlier we pulled our typical everyday virtual oracle. What would you call that?
Yeah, it's the virtual oracles, the four.
Yeah, what would you call our little like?
A little collage.
Okay, sure. Yeah. It was a Wednesday collage of our oracles, and when we did this, it was the mobile oracle, right? Mm-hmm. We received the mobile oracle for I am a seer. So that exact phrase, which is a match to this day's exact frequency, showed up for us before any of this. Mm-hmm. To us, on the one hand, it confirms that this whole day signature thing, it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. There's something alive today that is alive for today. And yes, it blends in what was alive yesterday and what's coming tomorrow, but it's like potent right now. It's poignant for the moment. So there it is. I am a seer. Everything we've talked about is taking the idea of being a seer into being.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the identity. I am a seer. And then it's the intimacy. So I would encourage everyone watching to do that. Claim that for yourself. Why not? It's the day's frequency. You are a seer as well. Choose to see the highest and the best, the most beautiful, the most exciting, and then choose to allow that great, big, beautiful thing to provoke something real in you and to motivate true action in a particular direction. And then watch what unfolds when you do. If you were to do that only for this one day, your risk is extremely low. There is no risk, remember? Have fun. We'll see you in the great big blue sky, right?
Yeah.
Let's flap around
good.
together a little bit. Let's all fly. This is great. Thank you for bearing with our metaphors. Thank you for being here with us. Enjoy this day. We will.
Mm-hmm. And see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye for now.